So when I served in the Trujillo mission, it was from 2008 to 2010, and at that time there were still only 7 missions in Peru, and now there are 13. Um, I remember my mission, the farthest north it went was a little town called Chepén, and then the farthest south it went was a tiny town called Huarmey. And then we went into the Andes a little bit. There were 2 mission areas in the Andes, Cajamarca and Huaraz. But the majority of the mission was, the majority of our zones were in the city of Trujillo itself and in a city called Chimbote. And there were zones in between there, but none of them were really large cities. And then Huaraz and Cajamarca as well. Those were larger cities where we had a few zones. I remember we had 3 districts in our mission. 3 districts in our mission, and it was our goal to have them develop into stakes, be strong enough to be organized as stakes and wards instead of districts and branches. By the end of my mission, we did. Huaraz became a stake, and Casa Grande became a stake. So 2 of those had grown sufficiently and had enough active membership and Melchizedek priesthood holders to support a stake and wards. It was phenomenal, and it was really enjoyable to do the work in those areas. Now there was one temple in Peru at the time, and then my first December there, so December 2008, they announced a second temple in Peru. It was the Peru Trujillo temple, and it was amazing. The members were so delighted to hear that their temple service had been heard, that the need was real enough that a temple could be built there. We had to work really hard to keep the members going to Lima. It was a 13-hour bus ride, might have been 14, to get people down to Lima and attend the temple. But where you're in a country where financial means aren't necessarily a common thread with everybody. Everybody kind of fights to survive. It's kind of a poor country. It's often called the poorest rich nation in the world because so much of Peru's riches are owned by other nations and companies. And so a lot of the people, they eke out a living with what we would consider very meager here in the United States. But that doesn't shortchange them in any way. They were the most humble and the most faith-filled people I've ever met. They loved you for who you were. They loved the Lord. Whether they were members or non-members, most everybody believed in God. It was pretty amazing. Predominantly, Peru was Catholic. A lot of Spanish influence in that way from the conquistadors. It was very Catholic, at least on the coast. And there was a pretty strong representative from Jehovah's Witness. And there were a few evangelical groups. And there were a few religions that were exclusive to Peru. There was a group that called themselves the Israelites. That was a Peruvian religion, and they followed the law of Moses. They were very interesting people. The missionaries worked really closely with bishops and stake presidents, and they all reported back. They all reported back to our mission president. Well, we did. The stake presidents didn't have to. We reported back to our mission president, and we kept close tabs on not only everyone we were working with, but everyone we were trying to strengthen. And we worked really hard to never be a deterrent or a hindrance to the work within the wards themselves. The people were so willing to help out with us, so willing to work with the missionaries, to invite their friends and families into their homes. There was like no fear. We would go in to talk with the family and say, hey, would you mind inviting your neighbors over for a family home evening? And is it okay if we come? It's like, we'll teach the lesson. We'll even come up with a game. Would you mind hosting that and inviting them? And they'd be, sure, we love that. And they'd invite their friends, and their friends would show up. And they'd be like, hey, we see you guys walking over here all the time. Who are you? And we'd get the wonderful opportunity to introduce ourselves and the church and the gospel into these families' lives. Now, it didn't always result in people joining the church, but it always resulted in good feelings and good, strong bonds being built with their neighbors. And who knows, those seeds could have gone very deep and could have planted. And just, I was never in an area for a very long time. Good things could have easily happened from just the willingness and the goodness to serve other people. The culture within the church down in Trujillo is there are always activities going on at the church. We just want people to be there and to feel the Spirit as often as possible, so there are always intramural volleyball games and soccer games. We even had a basketball game once, which people don't play basketball down in Peru. They all play soccer. And we had parties, we call them mission nights. We pull people off the streets. We stand outside like, hey, we're having a movie that we're showing, and we'd show the Testaments, or To This End Was I Born, or Finding Faith in Christ. We showed church-made videos. We'd invite people in, and there would be members there waiting. And afterwards, we'd have refreshments, and we'd invite people just to have fun. And that generated a lot of interest in the church and generated a lot of very spiritual conversations